So let's just make some comments. Strings are sequences of characters. Strings in Java, like Python, and unlike the C languages, are immutable. Immutable, meaning they cannot be changed. So if you do this, name is equal to Bob, and then later on you try to do this, name subscript 0 is equal to, Z, that flat out not going to work in this language or in Python. But one thing, we can't even address the elements of a string like that. Now I'm going to delete those two lines, and let's make something that actually works. String name is equal to Bill. We want to print out the first character. Okay, great. Char ch is equal to name dot char at subscript 0. That'll be a B. And then if we did another one, ch is equal to name dot char at subscript 1, that would be an I. And so on. If we got subscript 2, or yeah, so if we did 2 and 3, we get the 2 L's in a row. So this value that we pass to this method can be from 0 to n minus 1, where n is the length. Well, what if you want to know the length of it? How do you get the length? Getting the length of a string. Use the dot length method. So int name len is equal to name dot length. That would tell us how many characters were in that name. At this point, it would be 4. The string is immutable, so there's no way to replace one letter, one character in a string with another. Just a decision that the Java programmers made, but a lot of other languages have also since subsequently picked that up. What do you have to do? You could build a new string, right? If I wanted to replace the B with a W, so it would say will rather than Bill, then you could do that, right? You'd have to do string name2 is equal to quote W plus, and then you'd have to get the other 3 letters of the string, right? You'd have to get the I and the L and the L, and you can append them. And honestly, my brain just flipped, and I don't recall how to get a substring out of a string in Java. Okay, it is the word substring. You give the starting index and the ending index. And if you leave off the end index off, okay. So it would go like this. String name2 is equal to W plus name.substring starting at position 1. Position 1 means skipping position 0. So name.substring 1 means ILL. Now if we specify an ending position, it wouldn't be the whole thing necessarily, right? If we did like substring 1, comma 2, it would just get us that. If we did 1, comma 3, it just get us that. Well, we might play with substring just a little bit. But anyways, that's about the only way to replace the B in Bill with a W on, and it makes a brand new string, right? We can see that it creates a new string. So if your code is doing a lot of manipulations of strings, building new strings for display, then this kind of stuff here can actually take a long time. I don't mean a long time programming wise, I mean be inefficient, take up a lot of memory and a lot of processing time in order to run. That's why they came up with a string builder class, which would let you replace just one letter in that string with another one. It's about time to make sure that I remember the syntax of the substring class, because I would like for y'all to remember it. So I'm going to make a project, and we're going to just play with it just a little bit. T. Dropbox T. I didn't give my project a good name when I started it, so I'm going to find where we are right now, and I'm going to rename it to Lecture T. So I'm just right-clicking on it and doing, there should be a rename. Lecture T. They didn't rename my main class. My main class still has this silly name of Java Application 19. If I want to rename my main class, I can do that. I could go to Projects, find Lecture T in my list, right-click on it, and then Refactor Rename, and I'm going to call this one Lecture T as well. Now, you didn't have to do all that. I'm just pointing out that you can rename the things that are over here. And if you wanted to rename the package, you could do that. We also know how to get it out of the package completely, right? If I want to get it out of that package completely, I could just delete that line and then move it. Or I could grab the little source file here in my package directory and pull it up to source packages there. And it'll ask me if I really want to move it. If I click Refactor, now when I go and look at the line package has been removed from it. All right, so I'm going to make a string. String S is equal to, I like name. Name was good. Bill. That's terribly short. Let's do Bill Shatner, because we are Star Trek fans, and he was Captain Kirk. Now I'm going to wind up typing probably system.out.println so much that I may just copy and paste it. But system.out.println, name, subscript 0, and then I'm pasting it. I'm going to print out name subscript 1 and name subscript 2, except that's not how you do it in this language. Anybody remember from my little notes what I just said? Sorry, I walked in here out of Python and we were just doing this. Yep, dot char at parentheses, not braces, because these are function calls. Dot char at 1 and dot char at 2. So it should print out BIL. Yep, B, I, and L are in my output. Let's try Substring. So system.out.println name.substring, starting at position 2 and going out to position 5. Let's see how that looks. That got me L and L and a space. What is it doing? That's position 0. That's position 1. That's position 2. So it's starting it there. That's 2, 3, 4, and up to, but not including 5. So this is a starting index. Where it starts, it's inclusive. And then the 5 is one past where you want it to stop. So if I wanted to stop at the N, well, let's figure out what position N is at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I better make it go out to 11. And then it'll print out Bill Shat in. Just like that. No, it didn't. I lied.
Started from 1.
I started at 1. Okay, that would be why. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's make it say Bill Shah. Right. And so since I wanted to go out to say Bill Shah, this is position 7, so I need to make that an 8. What would happen if I made the starting and the ending one the same? If I print 2 comma 2. It's not going to print anything because that means starting at position 2 and going up to but not including position 2. Shouldn't print anything at all, and it did not. So that's an empty string in effect. So 2 comma 3 would get us the L. 2 comma 4 would get us 2 L's. The way that my brain works is the first position specifies the index of where we're going from, and then we take the difference of the two to figure out how many characters. Right, so if I wanted to start at I, and I wanted it to say ILL, well, I want to start it at index 1, and I want it to be 3 long, so 1 plus 3 is 4. So I would start that at 1, I would go to 4, so starting at position 1, which is the I, and then 4 minus 1 is 3, so giving me 3 characters, it's going to print ILL. Okay. Kind of refreshing the idea of strings, just so that we can compare and contrast with arrays, and then hopefully we can also talk about the string builder class. How about arrays? We're going to make an array of characters for whatever purpose. They're kind of annoying though. Character, how about a name for array of characters? Brace, in brace, and I think I'm doing this wrong. I think I'm doing that like a C when I need to be doing it Java. There we go. All right, we have created an empty array called a name. Well, it's not empty. It is 10 elements long, and we could start sticking values in it if we wanted to. A name subscript 0 is equal to a J. Now, these have to be single quotes because these are characters. A name subscript 1 is equal to I, or O, we're going to write out John. And then a name subscript 2 is equal to H, and a name subscript 3 is equal to N. I could have shortened this up so that I was initializing it with the letters J, O, H, N rather than allocating. And then, so I'm going to change the length of this to 4. We really only need 4 values, right? So I'm not going to say 10 here. I'm going to say 4 there. But unlike the C languages, C, C++, C#, I can't then just say print a name and have it treat it like it was the word John. I could write a loop to print it out, but I can't just say print a name and have it spit out John. I would have to make a little loop that did it. Something like this. For int I is equal to 0, I is less than 4. Now that's stupid. I should not be hard coding 4 in there. I++. System.out.print. I'm not putting print line. I'm just putting print because I want all the characters to be next to each other. Print a name subscript I. And then after it's done printing that name out, I'm going to print a character turn. So I'm going to do system.out.println. System.out.println. There. That printed that array out. Are there better syntaxes? Yeah. We could have used a for each loop. And so it did print John. Now the fact that this is an array is kind of nice because we could change the letters of it. If we didn't want the first letter to be a J, we could do a name subscript 0 and we could change that to something else. I can't think of any other names that end in O, right? HN, but maybe it's going to say Jan. That was kind of Scandinavian. You know, I could do a name subscript 1 is equal to A, and then when we printed it out again, it would print JAHN rather than JOHN. Just to prove that, I'm going to do a name subscript. Let's change the first letter, but make it lowercase. So a name subscript 0 is equal to single quote lowercase j, and then I'm just going to copy and paste my print function, my print code right there. I just highlight those 3 lines and paste them. And there it goes.
What in the world?
All right, so it printed at one time uppercase, and it went printed at one time lowercase. So by storing our data in an array, we were able to change the pieces of data in it. So if you're writing a hangman game or something like that, you may want to store your word, or in an array rather than as a string, or you read it in as a string and then you put it into an array. We have this string here called name. I feel like sticking that data into an array, letter by letter. But I'm going to need a new array in order to do that.
We're going to name Substring. I wonder what happens if the starting value is greater than the ending value.
It would blow up, I bet. Let's find out. I'm going to change that to a 5. Run it. Yeah, it generates an exception.
Why does it do that?
Well, because there is no position 5. How could it start at 5 and end at 4? Now, Python would probably do something cool and like print it out in reverse or something, but no, not this one.
What about C++ do that?
Right, this number has to be has to be lower than that one and greater than or equal to 0. So that your requirements are is the first number of your substring has to be 0 or larger, and this number here, if you want it to actually have anything, has to be at least 1 larger than that and not be greater than n, where n is the length of the string. So let's make an array that has a copy of this name in it. Now I've already made a name as an array name, so that's not, yeah, let's go down here and we're going to reallocate that array. A name is equal to new char, and I need to know how long my name string is. Anybody remember how we got the length of our name? It's just the dot name method. Yeah, name dot length, like that. And now we could use a for loop to copy all those values into that array. For, bless you, int I is equal to 0, I is less than name dot length, I plus plus. I forgot to put my parentheses after name dot length. And then a name subscript I is equal to name dot char at subscript I. Pull the character out of the string and stick it into the array. Now seem to remember that we had some cool functions like array.sort and array.reverse, things like that. Meaning that we could sort or we could reverse the letters of our name and then print them out with a loop very similar to this. I'm going to just copy these 3 statements, this print stuff, but it's not going to be right anymore because it's not only supposed to be 4, so maybe I better write it one more time. If I'm going to print that array out, for, let's do it as a for each loop. So for character ch colon a name, for every character in a name, system.out.println, or not println, just print ch, and then after that let's do a print line to put a carriage return to go to the next line. So system.out.println. I'm doing it this way because it's easier than typing for I is equal to 0, I is less than blah, 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 right? It avoids requiring me to index, to use an index, a subscript, to get that value out of the array. And so it printed out Bill Shatner. And what I'm trying to remember is if I have arrays dot sort, yeah, I could sort the letters in it, but is there a reverse? I really wanted to see a reverse. Nope. Too bad. C# has a dot reverse method, and I love it. Alright, well, forget it then. I'm not going to bother playing with it anymore. So we have this in an array, and we can do stuff with it if we wanted to. We could add one to its ASCII value, you know, add one to every element of the array, and then print it out, right? So I'm going to veer off the idea of arrays as arrays of letters for now. We can get back to that when we start talking about string builders. But instead, I want to write methods that do stuff with arrays. For example, we could write a method that was called average, and it would add up all the values in the array and then calculate the average. And if we're going to write that one, we may as well write one called sum. I feel like putting these into a different class. So I'm going to go to projects, find my current lecture project, my current package. So in the same package as my current .java file, I'm going to add a new class. So on mine it's default package. Right click, add new Java class. And I'm just going to call it AR utils for like array utils, right? And so we're going to add a sum method to it. We're going to add an average method to it. And it'd be kind of neat if we had a reverse, something that would reverse it. So, I think I'm going to want all of my methods to be public. And then I have a decision to make. Are these all going to be class members or instance members? Do I want to have to create an AR utils object in order to get the sum and to get the average and to get the reverse? I'm going to say for now, yeah. It's really kind of stupid, but for now, yeah. So I'm not going to make them static in that case. So public double sum, and it's going to take an array of doubles. You know what, ints are so much easier than I'm going to make it an array of ints. I'm being lazy. But remember, with overloading, we could create two different ones, one that took an array of doubles and one that took an array of ints. So int, square brace, in square brace, array, right? Or AR. Something easy to type. And whenever we do a total, we need to declare our accumulator, and then we need to have a loop that rips through it, adding things to our accumulator, and then we're going to need to return it. So I'm going to make my total called total, double space total equals 0. The fastest loop to write, not necessarily to run, but the easiest one to write is a for each loop. So for int v for value colon AR, total plus equals v, and then return total. Now, getting the average would just be a matter of getting the sum and then dividing it by the number of items in the array. Now, one thing I forgot to mention when I was writing my little notepad here is that if you're going to get the length of a string, you have to use parentheses. But if you're getting a length of an array, you don't use the parentheses. So let's make notes of that effect. Length of a string, s dot, you use dot length with parentheses. Length of an array, it's just a property. It's not a member. It's not a method. Just like that. And they have some cute little mnemonic in the book for memorizing it, and I honestly don't remember it. I'm sure we'll see it as we go through it. Actually, the way I remember it is I type it, and then when it doesn't work, I change it, right? So anyways, let's go and write a average method now. It's also going to be public. It's also going to return a double. Maybe I should have made this one return an int because it's a, list of ints, but public double average int subscript in subscript AR. So double R for retval or AVG or average or something is equal to sum parentheses AR in parentheses divided by AR dot length. And then we need to return R. Now that code actually has a problem, which is that it'll blow up if we pass in an array of length 0. What is the average? What is your average score if you never took any exams, right? Well, I made an average of 0. No, that's not strictly true, right? If you never, what is the average weight of an elephant if you don't have any elephants, right? So if the length of the array is 0, this is going to blow up. Now, since we made this one return a double, and a double divided by an integer 0 will not trigger the exception, it's not going to actually cause an exception error, but it's not going to be good data either. I'm not sure what it's going to return. Well, we could try it out. But let's test our code. We have two functions here, and I really want to test them out. I'm skipping right in the reverse for now. So I'm going to go back. First, I need to memorize what I called it. Oh yeah, AR utils. I'm going to go back to my lecture code. I'm going to make an array of ints, and then I'm going to call my function. So int nums square brace in square brace equals curly brace, and then just type in some numbers. In Python, you would have put square braces there, but different syntax for different languages, similar concepts. Now we need to create our array object, our AR utils object. Why? Because those were instance members, meaning that we have to have an instance in order to use them. If we declared them as static, we wouldn't have to do this next step, but we did not. So AR utils, what's my object name going to be? How about just util? Equals new AR utils, sub parentheses in parentheses. And now let's get the average, let's get the sum, and let's get the average. So double sum equals util.sum, passing our array in. Double sum equals util.sum parentheses nums. And double AVG equals util.average nums. So as I look at it, the only reason to make these be instance members like they are is if we had passed this array in when we constructed it, right? And then we wouldn't even have to pass in nums and nums there. I would like to modify our code so that we could do that. What I want to do is I want to take those nums out from there, like that. I'm deleting those two things. Now that's a syntax error. And I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to put nums there. Also a syntax error. We need to make some changes to our class to support that. So you see what I mean? This ARUtils, it's kind of a stupid name for it at this point, is now going to be a class that contains some data. You know, and a class is a template for a collection of data and then the methods that act on it. Previously, our class didn't have any data. We were having to pass it in every method call. But now it will. We're going to have to add a constructor. And the constructor will store our array inside that class. So I'm going to go back to ARUtils and add a constructor. And it's going to need a data element, a member, to hold the array that we're passing in. So I'm going back to ARUtils. We're going to need an integer array. I'm going to make it private. Private int, subscript in subscript. Nope, that's not where you do it. This is Java. Private int AR subscript in subscript, like that. Now I'm not going to create an array. I'm not going to say equals new blah blah blah, because that's what the constructor is going to do. So let's do that. Let's make a constructor. What is a constructor? Constructor is a method that has the same name as the class and no return type. So public ARUtils, and I'm really beginning to hate that class name. I think I'm going to do a refactor and give it a better name. Parentheses, and what am I going to pass in? I'm going to pass in an array of ints, just like that. Int AR. And when it's called, it's going to set this AR equal to AR. So when we call the constructor, it's going to take the reference value of that array and store it as a member of that array, so that when we call sum or we call total, or average, I mean, we don't need to pass in any data. So you see our method call here, our header for the sum method? Just remove that parameter. And the same for average. Remove that parameter. It's going to be using that member right there. It doesn't like this call right here. Now why would that be? It doesn't like the fact that I have AR here. Well, what do I have here between the parentheses? Nothing. So should I be passing in anything? Nope. I need to take that out as well. And we could keep on going. We could add more methods, right? We could add a print method, right? That would print out our array. If we want to get all statistical and stuff, we could, you know, calculate the standard deviation and the mode and the mean. And nah, we're not going to do all that. I want to make sure that everybody's got it working up to this point, though. I need to modify my lecture-t.java to at least print the array out and then print the average and the sum so that I can eyeball that they're working. Let's go ahead and make those members of this class. Let's write a method called print let's not. I just undid all that. I'm going to go back to lecture-t.java. I want to print the array, so I'm going to use arrays.toString to print it out. So system.out.println, parentheses, quote, arrays.toString, parentheses, nums. Yes, I could use a loop to print it out, but I'm cheating. I'm using the arrays class to print it out, and now I'm going to print out the sum and the average. System.out.println, except I'm going to use printf, system.out.printf, parentheses, quote, sum equals %f, comma, average equals %f backslash n. And then after the end quote, comma, sum, comma, avg. Not sum dot avg, sum, comma, avg. Now I'm not seeing my output when I run it. I don't see my output window. I'm trying to find my output window. Oh, window. Window output. Well, where you go? I sure would like to see my output. Why? What's that? There it is. If I clicked on that little speech bubble, it showed me the output. How odd. Why wasn't I able to do that? All right, so when I ran it, it printed out the array using arrays.toString. And then it printed out the sum and it printed out the average. I'd like for everybody to be at about this point. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording and get us all together on that. This is the last stuff that we typed in right there. So we have this cute chunk of code. What if we felt like this ARUtils class was so awesome that we might want to give it to somebody else? Well, for one thing, we'd want to give it a better name. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to highlight that entire word and do refactor rename, and I'm going to call it Jeff Array. Don't put Jeff, your name's not Jeff, but Lynn Array or Daniel Array or something. And now we're going to try to create unit tests. So what I did is I highlighted the name of my ARUtil class, and I did refactor rename, and I gave it a different name. Right now mine's called Jeff Array. You wouldn't call it that. I did restart the recording, did I not? Yep. Okay. I'm going to rebuild it to make sure that I didn't break it. I should not have, but just to make sure. So hammer and broom it, run it. Great. Seems to work. Now come over here to projects. And you see where it says test packages? I'm going to try to minimize all of my projects except for my current one. Alright, right, so that's my last project there. That's my currently working project. And there's an entry here called test packages. If we have JUnit installed, we can create tests. What I want you to do is select your arrays class. Not the one with main, but the one that you call Jeff Array or Lin Array or whatever. Select that, and then come up to Tools. I hope it's here. Well, create update tests. There it is. So select your class, and then go to Tools, create update tests. And then just leave it all alone. Don't bother deselecting anything. Alright, here's what it did. It did something. Just to see what it does without fixing anything else, come up to the Run menu and do Test Project. Rather than Run Project, do Test Project. Alright, and it says the test failed. And then we look, oh, hey, cause an error. Okay, so nothing is working, but that's okay. We haven't written the test. We've just generated the framework for it. Now we're going to go and we're going to look at those tests. So under Projects, you should be able to come down to Test Packages, and you should find Jeff Array Test or Lin Array Test or 2 Array Test or whatever. Double click that and scroll down and look at our tests. So to test the sum method, here's what it tries to do. It tries to create an instance of our class. It tries to call our class, and then it asserts that what it got back from the class is equal to the expected result. Now, that's not going to work. For one thing, nothing actually ever creates our class. Nothing ever creates our... So we're going to have to add some code to our tests here to make sure that we can actually create the object and then run the test on it. So where it says Jeff Array instance equals null, we know what we need to do. We need to make an array. So int num subscript in subscript equals curly brace 1, 2, 3, right? That'll be really easy to figure out. And now let's use our Jeff Array class or our Lin Array class or whatever. Jeff Array. Wait, no, we've already got that.
It's not showing up the same on mine.
Yeah, so
Particular, some lines left out.
So do instance equals new, and then the name of your array class, which in mine is Jeff Array. Passing in NUM into it. And I have a capital R there where it needed to be lowercase, so I'm getting a syntax here. Now if we were going to call sum on our data, what should the sum be? Yeah, it ought to be 6. So our expected result is not 0, it's 6. And then once you've got all that coded, delete or comment out this last thing. Now when I run it, it shouldn't display both errors. It should only display one error. So I'm going to do run test project again. It's still going to say it failed, but it succeeded 50% of the tests. I will need to make changes similar to the other one. Some worked, but average did not. That's because there's another method down there called average. To make it easier on yourself, copy these 2 lines right there, because we're going to need them in the average, in the test average method. So I'm going to highlight those 2 lines where I declare my array, and then where I do instance equals new. And I'm going to scroll down and find my test average test clause. Here it is, test average. And so right there before my result line is where I'm going to paste those two things. And when I call average, what is the average of 1, 2, and 3? 2. Right. Okay. Now when I run it, or excuse me, now when I test it, run test project, it said 1 test passed, 1 test failed. Which one failed? Test average. Failed. The test case is a prototype. Okay, I forgot to do something. Showing off all of my code. What did I forget to do? I had us do it on the other method and I forgot to do it on this one. Yeah, we don't want that failed comment there.
So I'm not sure if I missed something, but I think I still have a 0% on my test.
I'll come look. Run test project, and it said that my tests succeeded. So what is this fail word for anyways? Well, what if we pick up some conclusion that we really hate to see happen? I really hate for it to show me that the average is equal to 0. I could just do this. If result equals 0, then fail, parentheses, the result better not be 0. Right, this is stupid, and I'm going to wind up commenting it out or deleting it, right? And now I'm going to change my data so that the average of it really is equal to 0. So it better not be 1, 2, 3. It should be 0, 0, 0. I just want to see that error message pop up. And now when I do run test project, it said 1 test failed, 1 test succeeded, and I look at it. Oh, well, it caught the error here because it said that okay. Make one more change to get it to run, and then I'm going to undo both those changes. I just wanted you to see my custom error pop up here. Failed. The result better not be 0. Right? Okay, that's silly. So what am I going to do? I'm going to delete those two things, and I'm going to undo the changes I just made here. 1, 2, 3, and the average of 1, 2, and 3 is 2. I'm going to test it one more time, and then I'm going to pause the recording and help. Okay. So what people will do is they will generate test libraries, banks of tests to test, all sorts of different functions in their code, all the different methods. And then if somebody goes in and they make a change to your code base, you can just run the tests on it. And if they have messed up something, if it's returning the wrong average or whatever, boom, you know it. You don't have to go and each time somebody changes it, you don't have to go in and write a new test just to see, whether your existing body of code is still working or not. So you create a library of unit tests. We've only got 2 here, but you can have hundreds, right? Hundreds of tests that it was supposed to do. And as long as you were able to specify what kind of input it take and what the expected result was, then you'd be good. You could run the tests on it whenever you wanted to do. Let's pause. One more thing I wanted to cover. We're almost out of time, but we gotta cover it. It's so much fun. What if we had an array like this? We had an array that had these numbers in it. It had a 1, a 4, a 12, and a 6 in it. And then we wanted to reverse it so that it had the numbers 6, 12, 4, and 1 in it, right? So this is element number 0. That's element number 1. That's element number 2. That's element number 3. And when we're done, we want that to be element 0. We want that to be element 1, that to be element 2, and that to be element 3. So how would we do that? We'd want to swap values, right? Now I'm just going to play, and this is not going to be correct. So array subscript 0 becomes what? Well, what value is 6?
It's the 3.
It's the 3. So array subscript 0 is equal to array subscript 3. Now, there's definitely a problem here. And then array subscript 1. What is that?
Subscript. We could ask for the length of it, and then have array for a for loop to go.
Yeah, it needs to be a loop. You're exactly right. And the problem with what I'm doing here is that I'm not using a temporary value. So it's going to wind up deleting something that I don't want it to do. What we really want to be doing is we really want to swap array 0 with array 3. We really want to swap array 1 with array 2, and so on, out to the length of the list, or at least up till half of the list. So let's go and see if we can crank out some swapping code in a couple of minutes. If not, you know what, I ought to just blow this off. I want to cover it. Let's do it. So I'm going to go back to lecture T. We have an array here called nums. I'm going to make a new array called nums2. Int nums2 equals new int subscript, and I want it to be the length of the nums array. So nums dot length with no parentheses because it's an array and not a string. And we need a for loop. So for int I is equal to 0, I is less than nums dot length, I plus plus, nums2 subscript I is equal to nums subscript what? So if we're copying the first position here, we want first position here to be what of this one? You see what I'm saying? If I want the first element of nums2 to be the last element of this one, then if this was 0, what would I want this value to be?
3, or
I would want it to be
nums
0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. We would want it to be nums.length minus 1. That's not going to quite fix it, but it's close. Because the next one is going to have to look like this. And don't type what I'm typing here. This is just going to be for illustration purposes. Like that, and so on. That's what it's going to need to do, out to the end of it. So if I'm going to put this as I, then this expression doesn't really need to change, but what could I do? Instead of minus 0, could I make that minus I? That's not quite right. How about minus I minus 1? I think that would do it right there. And let's print our array out. System.out.println. We're going to have to definitely go back over that again. Arrays dot toString parentheses nums2. Yeah. Alrighty. There is a Dropbox T. If you need the code back, here's the code again, but I'm going to be talking about a homework assignment as well. So why don't we ask the user for their full name, use dot next line to get it, and then create an array where each element of the array is a character from the name. Print each element of that array out. All right, that's part of it. And then for create a 10-element array. 5, fill that array with the values math.pow 2 to the power of I, where I is the index value of the array. And then 6, calculate the sum of that array. 7, print the array and its sum. All right, hope that makes sense. We practically did. You would probably just cut and paste from what we did today and get that one done. This is a little bit different, right? But not too much. You don't have to use your array class that we created today to calculate the sum. Just write a loop, right? If you want to use your class that you wrote today, sure, whatever. That makes sense? There is a Dropbox for it.